No, I was just like, I've got him. I was the puppet master in that moment. I was like, I planted the seed on Thursday. I targeted Feng first. He was weak-willed enough to agree that he would dance if you won. Then I looked at Brody and said, "You're really gonna be the only one not willing to dance if you win the cooling." Hamilton wasn't even there. He didn't even know that he'd agreed to it.
Welcome to another episode of Cardboard and Beyond. This time, my guest is a player that has been making massive waves in the flesh and blood competitive scene, not just because of his prolific Gravy Bones skills, but also because he has been to and top-aided nearly every event that he has been to since calling Kobe earlier this year. Even though he's only been a household name for about a year or so, he's always been there, fighting hard and vying for his spot amongst the greats. He also forced Ray Adams to eat a copy of Count Your Blessings, which was fun. His name is Jacob Clements. Jacob, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Even though, Jacob, it's a particularly special show with you as our guest, I would like to start with my regular question, which is why card games?
So I got into card games when I was in school. I had a funny interaction. I was always like a bit in the stereotype, maybe of what you think of card games, like a bit more nerdy, a bit less social. And some some kid said to me, they're like, "Oh, you're such a nerd. You probably go to the nerd club." And I was like, "Oh, what's that? Gotta check that one out." And so I went along the next week to it was called at my school it was called Sci-Fi and Fantasy Club, but it was basically just a Magic the Gathering club that was ran by one of the teachers, Mr. Ives, who was amazing. And I like got into Magic through that, and just the like kind of like the application of this like strategical analytical skill that I like kind of feel like I have and really enjoy using, but don't always get the opportunity to, and like has like kept me hooked to card games ever since.
So, in a sense, you could say that you have had a legitimate schooling in card games in that your teacher was running the Magic the Gathering Club.
Yeah, yeah, definitely could. Or got me started on the path. I mean, then there's obviously much more story I could tell about getting into Magic and going to my local game store and then making the switch over to Flesh and Blood when my store started stocking it with some other people. We had a funny situation where we all were getting into Flesh and Blood at the same time on these Aria like Blitz starter decks. Um, and I got the Oldham one. And after a couple of weeks of liking the game, I bought a Rampart. And then every week for about a month, we had a different understanding of how Rampart was going to work.
Mm.
Because at first, I blocked it on every attack. It was great. And then the next week, someone's like, I've read on the rules something about closing the combat chain. You don't have to close the combat chain. So we just shouldn't against you. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. Rampart was a bit too good how I was playing it. And so the brides would go like, lightning surge from Arsenal, nimblism, keep combat chain open, nimblism, make an embodiment, keep combat chain open. And then they'd say a snatch, and I'd be like, yeah, you got me. No, how would Rampart ever block a second time? Such a weirdly designed card.
Rules be damned. So what?
It kind of swung back and forth.
So you had this love-hate affair with what is like the main staples of the cards that you enjoy to play. What are your more current views on Rampart now that the rules are completely understood? Is it one of your favorites?
Rampart's very cool. That playing Oldham, like that was the first deck I played, and that kit with Crown of Seeds and Rampart, it was very fatiguey, but I really liked it. It helped me get into Flesh and Blood, like seeing the kind of macro strategies and game states that you can have, and that more, I don't know, that's always been the like really interesting or really deep Flesh and Blood that I like, has been these things where like you got to think about your like threat density or pitch stack or these things. Though nowadays I am unfortunately of the opinion, looking back, that I kept doing what block two with a card in effect. I should have just been playing Stalagmite and giving fools frostbites.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's flash back to that first moment when you were getting engaged in card games in what was it, Mr. Eisen? It wasn't Mr. Eisen, was it? That would be crazy.
I've
Ives. Can you imagine? That would have been
Yeah.
kismet. So, Mr. Ives'
Yeah.
classroom, was your journey into Magic the Gathering immediately straight into the competitive scene, or was it something that you just engaged with casually? Like, what was that path where all of a sudden Jacob Clements is traveling around the country, heck, around the world, competing for big cash prize pools?
So at first I was just playing in my school and we were in that like 60 card, but no like format. Not you're not playing like
Mm.
standard or modern or anything. It's just whatever cards you have. Um and so it was like kind of forcibly a bit more well, not forcibly, but the environment was a bit more casual. People weren't like building decks with like a format or a structure in mind. And so I bought like some booster packs or got a star stack or something and was playing and I was enjoying it, but I did have that competitive itch where I could see that some people had more refined decks or more like focused strategies, and I was like watching YouTube content and like going home and looking up, I don't know, things about Magic to try and work it out. And there was a friend of mine, Connor, who had an infect deck that could just like kill you on turn
Oh
two because
yeah,
you'd
I
turn
love
one
Infect.
play Glistener Elf, and then it would have like these like free mutagenic growth pumps and a bunch of one cost +4 pumps. And I was like, I want to be winning. I want to be like refining a deck to be, do all these things. I'm gonna build my own one of those. And even him, I remember I was like, your deck's just like it's got these like fun. I'd like ask him about it, and he'd be like, I think this card's fun. And I'd be like, cost 2 mana, too slow. We're gonna do it faster than that.
I love it.
But
So you got very
I was also
quickly
like a hyper.
into like the optimization kind of aspect of things. You didn't stick around in that 60 card casual format for very long.
No, or I like in my heart, I was always wanting to move beyond it. Though for a while, I was still like playing that like unspecified rules set 60 card game. And then even I always just have this desire to optimize because then as I'm playing, people are like, we want to be a bit more relaxed. Can't always be playing the infect deck that kills us on turn two. And sometimes people try and play like multiplayer, but still in this like 60 card casual format. So I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to build the best and most efficient group hug deck. And that's how I'll interact with all these casuals. I'll be so good at making them draw cards. In fact, I'll make them draw so many cards they'll have none left in their deck. And so it was like a mill deck with no mill win con. I just had cards that shuffled my graveyard back. So I was like, I'm going to group hug you so hard, you'll have no cards.
I honestly have always gravitated away from those multiplayer formats just because I don't like the politics, but I could embrace that philosophy. The group hug so hard it hurts. I really like that.
Yeah, it was for me. It was always a bit of a like I kind of had the sense that I wanted to be, bit more competitive outside of this environment. But it was just like, in my town with the pool of people available, like in this club, there wasn't, you kind of have to take what you get at that level. And also, I liked all the people and wanted to go hang out with them. So I was like, I'll keep playing this like 60 card, no rules thing. But I still have this desire.
So, speaking of desires, there's another card game on the block. I swear to God, folks, this is a Flesh and Blood podcast. We'll get to Flesh and Blood. But first, we do need to talk about the new kid in town, which is Riftbound. It's just come on the scene and has inevitably tempted a lot of big flab players, temporarily at least, away from their world's preparations. My team is subject to the same kind of temptation. I tend to think that they're all kind of allured by the prospect of breaking a brand new game wide open. And I think it's kind of indicative of a lot of the really good Flesh and Blood players, or card game players in general at
Yeah.
large. Were you at all enticed?
Not really. So this year I feel like I'm almost Brody's protege, where he's been like, follow me and we'll go to every cooling in the world and we'll lock in on Flesh and Blood. Because Hamilton said something to me about this where he's like, if are got this card game itch and you want to play lots of tournaments, you are just based off like, the amount of tournaments there are in any given card game to get to the volume that we're kind of wanting, it seems at least that you want, you either have to be willing to travel like stupidly, like crazy distances for the
Mm-hmm.
weekend, like Brody, or you have to pick up more card games. And I thought about it and I was like, I honestly do not mind, the long plane rides and the layovers and whatever else that much. I'm still, I don't know, young or whatever makes it so that you look at a 27-hour flight itinerary with 2 stops, one of which is a self layover where you might miss your next flight and get trapped in Vietnam, and think, it's not that bad.
My spine is cringing just hearing you say that. So maybe it is live it up while you've got the young man's, I don't know,
Yeah.
joints.
Well, I also think there's something in me that just doesn't get stressed enough about these things. Like
Mm.
this flight, my flight to Vietnam got super delayed, so I was definitely gonna miss the flight. And I'm like in line at customs, like thinking about how because I had to check in person. I'm like, check-in's gonna close an hour before. It is now an hour before. That's not ideal. I can't get on the Wi-Fi in this airport in Ho Chi Minh. I like finally get out. I get on the street. I like walk into the arrivals bit. I connect to the Wi-Fi, and I get an email that the flight's been delayed 2 hours. And I'm like, oh, that was my only out. So great that it happened. But I like honestly, I'm like in the moment, and I'm getting worried that I'm not stressed. But I'm not. But I'm like still not stressed. And I'm like, I don't know what this says about me, but it makes me ideally suited for this.
Without a doubt, and honestly might even suit you in particular to competitive card gaming. I mean, I think of moments on stream, maybe not your Gravy Bones versus Cilio match that we saw on stream. That was the most rattled I think I've ever seen you. But I'm thinking back to like the finals of calling Kansas City where you're up against Evan Herndon and things are going this way, that way. The gold is on your side, then it's on his side, but you're not finding the
Yeah.
conquerors, whatever. And you never seem rattled. You always seem to be having a good time. Is there something innately within you or a skill that you've developed that allows you to kind of not sweat the small stuff? Or heck,
I
even the big
I don't know.
stuff?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I mean, there's a whole other interesting conversation that could go for hours, and I'm not nearly knowledgeable enough either, probably, to
Mm,
have about like neurodivergence and like that like disability space and all these things. But I like have been at least educationally assessed with like to have I think it's traits consistent with the symptoms because it's not a
mm,
diagnosis, but of ADHD and dyslexia. And I think there's something in that like the thing that makes me like time blind and have like no sense of urgency of like catching my train, all these things probably is like somewhere in me the bit of your brain that's meant to start getting worried about things. There's like something broken in it
yeah.
that like I don't know explains lots of the things that happen in my life
Wait,
mostly because of my inaction, but also, like you say, make me very suited to what it is I've chosen to take up, at least for
exactly.
now.
And at least the way you approach it, and perhaps it's just your response to whatever it is, call it neurodivergence if you'd like, that almost makes it a superpower in some regard. Because I mean, I think about another person like myself being in the same situation where you're not going to catch that flight to Vietnam, and whether I freak out about it or not, I'm in the same place. Like we're occupying the same universe where
Yeah,
I'm gonna miss it unless it gets delayed. You're just a little more calm about it.
yeah, yeah. Like I say, I don't know all the bits of this, but I do. I am kind of aware of this in myself that there's like some normal level of stress or reaction that just
Mm.
never quite seems to trip for me, which I've found mostly. I mean, I had to have some good guidance growing up on how to kind of cognitively process some of the like urgency for some things that really do matter. Like for 2 years when I went to sixth form college, I had to catch the train every day. And I
Mm.
actually think that might have been a godsend for getting me to be able to kind of like consciously work through what seems to kind of come unconsciously for a lot of people I talk to, that like you've actually got to get out the door and be at the train station. Otherwise, you're
It,
going to miss the train.
okay, so what did you do to kind of, I don't know, I guess force the imperative?
I honestly think that, at least so far, the only things that have ever worked for me are like being punished
Okay.
for making the mistake and then not making it again. So I just missed the train a lot of times.
And eventually Jacob was fed up with that, whether he was stressed about it or not.
Yeah. He was like, we just can't. Because I'm also like, there's something at some point I do get, if not worried, at least urgent. Like I'm not
Hmm.
trying to be late. So I would like, be like in the house, whatever. Like it's like 10 minutes for the train, and really I should leave then. But I know that if I run, I can make it in 5. And then it's
Mm.
5, and I'm like really like brushing my teeth. like for a minute and then running out the door. And I'm like, but then I am like sprinting down the street to the train station because I actually like I do actually want to make it. And then I recently reflected on how many lifetime trains I've missed because my house is on the other side to the platform that the train leaves at. And I realized it was double digits easily because I would get to the gate, I would like scan my ticket through the gate, and then I would have to like, be like, I made it, and then I'd be like, no, it's the other side, and I'd have to like run up and over and down, and I'd always be in flip flops, and I'd be like that, like flap, flap, flap,
Yeah, of
flap
course.
sound,
It's a pretty
like
comedic scene,
pushing past
honestly.
the people who are getting off the train, going the other way. The like ticket guards are watching me, and I'd make it. The guy blows the whistle, the doors lock, and I'm like, "Ugh," and I go to sit down, and I'm like, well, 20 minutes to the next train. I mean, a 5 minute run home. You could go home and do a couple more things for the next train. So I'd walk back over and I'd look at the ticket agent. I'd be like, it won't let me out now the gate because I've already scanned my ticket. But like, you clearly I didn't make the train, so you can just let me out and let me back in 10 minutes. And surely I won't miss the next one as well.
And this guy's like, this kid must be bonkers.
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
I love that, man. Bringing it back down to earth here. Uh, Jacob, even though we're talking about something that affects a lot of people around the world, in negative and positive ways, neurodivergence, and something that has become not necessarily more kind of prolific in our time, but maybe more noticed and more appreciated and more cared
yeah.
for. It does take we need to take a minute and step back and understand that even if you're, I don't know, afflicted with neurodivergence or whatever it is, you're an incredibly social guy, and it seems to be one of the things that's aided you so well in your card game career. You're known for being a part of some of the best, highest level flesh and blood teams in the competitive scene, and you can assume the benefits of leveling up your play and being part of some of these groups. But there are often, cliques, people fulfill different roles, and of course drama here and there. So I'm much more interested in the human element. So what is it, do you think, that Jacob Clements adds to a team dynamic that makes him a huge asset?
I think I, it's hard to sum it up
Because
all
you
on the
are
spot, but
without a doubt a huge
yeah,
asset. I don't think anybody
yeah.
could say otherwise.
Well, as I say, I feel like I can sometimes in a way I can be like quite loud or take up quite a lot of space, but I like to think that I'm like a driver or an agitator. Like I
Mm.
remember something from science where like when you have like a chemical reaction, it's like all the right pieces are there and would do the thing, but at the moment they're just like kind of sat still. And if you got these like two chemicals, they're just like the edge bits are like touching each other. And then there's like you need like some third element to come in and like mix it all up so everything gets going. And I feel like sometimes that's a bit of what I do,
You're the
where I like
catalyst.
come in and I'm like, all right, like there's no, I don't know, sat back sometimes
Well,
with
interesting.
me.
Can you give me an example that's actually more directly related to Flesh and Blood? Is it something like, oh, this Verdance list is solved, whatever, and you're like, Sirens of Safe Harbor is pretty sexy right now, or something like that? What does that look like?
Uh, I think, or like another way I think about it is I like have a very obsessive personality, maybe is one way of saying it.
Hmm.
So play like a lot of Flesh and Blood when I want to. And so I also feel like sometimes I'm like the workhorse or the like I play a lot of the enemy in
Mm.
testing often. So it'll be like someone will have had this idea and they'll be like, maybe it could be good, maybe it wouldn't. And I'll be like, I will sit down and keep playing the, whatever deck no one wants to play and keep like jamming games. And so uh before Pro Tour Baltimore, when I was testing with some British guys, not the armory team that I'm with now, no one on our team was that interested in playing Lexi, but we all kind of knew it was
Mm.
the best deck. So I like picked up and learnt the Lexi deck and was like, all right, I'm gonna like play this deck so that we, everyone else who's got ideas on how to beat the Lexi deck. I used to joke that I'm like, it's like in Formula One, I'm not the engineer, I'm just the driver. Like I'll pilot the decks, but I don't know how to build them. This is all like some witchcraft everyone else around me is good at. But I will learn to play. I'll like we'll get a Lexi list from someone or some tournament, and I will like learn to play it. And then everyone who's got, George Roger wanted to play the righteous cleansing, the like 7 for 10 that
Right.
looks at the top 5 cards and banishes to like fatigue, like actively fatigue them. And I was like, I'll like, keep playing Lexi into this and see if there's anything the Lexis can do to adapt. Or like in testing when Jamie Falconer would always need like a Guardian player to go like 100 reps of the Dromai Guardian matchup with him, so he could know that the like Dromai can counter anything the Guardian does and always win. And I mean, classic illusionist players thinking they're 100% into every matchup.
So going back to your social skills, based on a couple of anecdotes that I've heard, one that comes to mind is when you actively inserted yourself in a philosophical discussion that Brody was having about an AI or something that would be 100% great at Flesh and Blood. How good of a Flesh and Blood player would it actually be? You seem to have no qualms about inserting yourself into group dynamics where you think you can learn something, or at least where you think
Yeah.
maybe you can have an impact both positively and gain something for yourself. Is that a skill that you have innately, or is that something that you had to cultivate?
I feel like I have it innately, or almost feel like it's like a potential weakness that I have to like manage. Where I like, you know, would always growing up, especially, I'd just like, kind of like butt into every conversation
Mm.
and be like, oh, I have something to say. And then growing up, I've almost had to be like, well, it's not always our turn to talk. Sometimes people are talking to their friends, and they don't know that they're friends with you yet because we've never met yet. So you have to take it nice and slowly, and respect their space. But yeah, so Brody was talking to someone, and but like sometimes it like grabs me too strongly, and I'm like, no, I do have something good to say. And he was like talking about how the AI would, if it would top all the Pro Tours or not, like how I like as the indirector, how big of a variance role it was. And I heard whoever was talking to was like saying something, being like, I don't know, there's a lot of variance in Fab. And I was like, it's very vague. I have something concrete. I want to ask how this interacts with draft pods.
Oh
Because
no.
in 1v1, anytime you're like, oh, well, if your opponent makes a mistake, it's like, I'll just benefit. But like draft pods, someone could make a mistake that harms you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no one in this conversation's brought this up yet. I gotta go for it. They gotta know that they're not thinking about the multiplayer dynamic of a draft pod.
My favorite phrase from everything you just said is "they don't know that you're friends yet." That's actually a really amazing way to move through life. Everybody's my friend; they just don't know it yet.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
I sometimes have funny retrospectives with people who I'm now friends with, where we'll be like, what did you think when we first met? And often they're like, it's kind of crazy.
does
I
that? Do you
was a
like?
bit like, who's this guy? Who's
Do you
this
like
guy? Why is
hearing
he? Why
that?
is he?
Do you kind of wear that as a
Well,
badge of honor, or?
I kind of wear that. Well, really, I try and like keep it in the balance with this reflection of like, really, we still have to be aware. Or I often say we when I just mean me. So I don't know whether so whoever's writing the like paper on neurodivergence and whatever listening to this can put that into my cocktail of symptoms. But um, I got to remember that it really there will be some people who I won't end up with friends with, and will just be like, it was just crazy, butted in, like wasn't asked, and you gotta like read the room or find the right time or whatever. But I don't know. I think card game players, we can all tend to be a bit on the socially anxious side, and sometimes you need that agitator to come in and mix it up.
I love it. I love you being a mixologist in social situations. Um, and by the way, I'm sending all of this footage to Oxford for that paper to be written. This has all been a giant ruse. And speaking of Oxford, I heard a
Yeah.
rumor that could be absolutely and completely baseless, but I did want to bounce it off you. I heard that you are poised to graduate from Oxford, and you have been for a few years now, and that you keep waiting to walk until you have a gap in your Fab tournament schedule. Is there any truth to it?
Uh, there's some truth to this. It's not quite that crazy. I finished my degree June uh this year. Yeah, it was not the new year yet. Um, and it's not like some of these other university systems I've heard from where it's like you can keep delaying doing the credits. Like I had to do a full load of work. But now that I have finished my exam, I do have to schedule a graduation ceremony. And I got offered 3 dates for it at first. And I looked at the Flesh and Blood organized play schedule and I said, great. I think it was the 15th of August. No callings that weekend. I'll do it. And then I messaged my parents and they said, Kara's getting married then. And I was like, understandable. But I'm not doing either of the other two weekends I got offered, the schoolings that I have to go to. So I booked it for, I think it was like September, middle end of September, and was like, great, we'll do it then. And then more Flesh and Blood events got announced, and that was the weekend of Cooling Shizuoka. And
Mm.
so I was like, no worries, I'll graduate a different weekend. And I went online to my portal and was like, how can I change this graduation date? And they were like, you can change to graduate in absentia, like just do it remotely. And I was like, ooh, I think my parents would be quite sad not to see me walk down the aisle. And so I emailed the Oxford and I said, I have an unavoidable personal commitment. It's really important. I can't graduate when I said, what other dates can you offer me? And so I'm now booked into, and they offered me some other dates that all already had callings announced on them, or March 6th of next year. So I'm currently booked to graduate on March 6th.
And
And
nothing could
I
possibly
really hope,
disrupt that.
yeah, I think we're at the point now where even if there was a calling, I might just finally have to graduate. But I really hope I don't have to make this choice
Mhm.
because I might learn too much about myself if I do.
And what is your major or your focus? I'm not sure what they call it in England at Oxford.
Uh, so my degree was in philosophy, politics, and economics. It's like in England, it's a bit less free form. I know it doesn't sound it when I say that, but it's like you just apply for a course and then you're just on that course. It's less this like choosing your major and your minor, but it was a combined course in those three.
Mm. So, is there a day sometime in the future where Jacob Clements settles down and lets Fab take a back seat, or is that not on the horizon for you at all yet?
I I don't think it's on the horizon yet. I mean, I'm just like having a great time and uh making it work logistically and in all the ways that are important, which isn't actually that many in life if it's making you happy. And so, it's not things like career development or whatever. I'm not I'm not stressed about at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, as long as I keep having good time and it keeps, supporting itself or making sense logistically, I'll keep going for it. I think I did an interview for the Fleshwood magazine, I think, where I
Mm-hmm.
was like, as long as the ride will keep having me and I keep wanting to go for another, go round, I'm not gonna let some like vague notions that I shouldn't be doing this stop me.
Have there been other things in your life that you have kind of tried to latch onto before Flesh and Blood and before card games, or was this the first kind of hobby lifestyle that really stuck with you?
This basically was, I mean, I actually remember when I was still playing Magic, I went to the first like big event I went to. It was the Pro Tour in London in 2019, I think,
Mm.
where they introduced the London Mulligan, fun fact. Or at least that was true. So if I've said a different year than that happened, it was that year, I think.
And thank goodness for
And
the
I like
London
was
Mulligan, by the way. Doesn't make it better than Flesh
yeah,
and Blood,
well,
but it did make it better.
did make it better. Well, and like it being in that event hall, and I just went just for the like kind of convention-y bit and like did side events and whatever, didn't play the GP. But like being in that hall and like all the buzz and like seeing all the people competing, I was like, I
Mm.
kind of had that feeling of like this is where I want to be in a way that I'd not yet and been a bit like, oh, I don't know what I'll do with my life. And I was like there and I was like, this is the thing that I want. And then COVID happens and then Magic cans its OP. And then I'm like, ah, how tragic to have found the thing you want on its last ride. So so then to get like a, do-over or a resurgence of good organized play in Flesh and Blood has been like, I don't know, what a high roll. To have
Without a
seen the thing
doubt.
you want, it had been canned, and then Flesh and Blood I mean, I don't mean this in an offensive way, but to basically copy paste the organized play system to some extent and be like, ah, I can do it. And in a what I would say a better game system as well.
Mm. What? So, flashing back to what you said about you saw it, you saw what you wanted. You're in that convention hall. You're not playing in the GP. Say more about that. What exactly did you see that you wanted in that moment?
It was like all the time I'd spent playing Magic at school or at like this little LGS in Winchester where I lived. It's like, there's like this like like super deep, like strategical game that like I can play competitively and like the drive to, be like locked in on winning and everything. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm, not playing for anything. It's like the same like, you know, eight or so people. And it's like, I don't know, it's like not quite at a scale where you can imagine really pursuing it. And then it's like to see like all the people who have come out and are all
Mm.
competing and like I don't know, like imagining like winning on that level against that many people and like having that many like driven opponents to go up against. Because to some extent as well, like when you're in these like like small environments and everyone's bringing the same deck every week, I'm like, really, I could just like look at the two people who are always in 2-0 in round three of my standard showdown and just play a deck that beats both of them or something. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, there's nothing wrong with that level. And that's like a, great like community. And it was great. But it's just like seeing the like scale it gets to and being like, there's something here. Like this could be like a proper project that could have like real like fruits to succeeding in.
Yeah, you saw a mountain to climb, and you were already
Yeah.
engaged in the hobby itself. You loved the thing, but you saw a different way to engage with it. One that honestly, at this point looking back, was a worthy test of your mettle.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Like seeing the mountain to climb. And it's like I've got my hiking boots on, but I keep just walking up like the same like four 4 foot mound.
Yeah, you're doing the nature
And I'm
trail
like,
outside your backyard.
I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, this is a great. I was like, I love doing this nature trail, but like, I feel like I could be doing something a bit tougher.
Jacob, at this point, we are coming to a close of Act One. It's been amazing to see a greater depth to you as a human being. I'm very thankful for it, and I'm thankful that you went there with me. We're going to start transitioning slowly into your world or your space in the flesh and blood world. But before we go there, I do want your opinion on a very controversial topic. There has been a lot of discussion in the Fab community about the inclusion of the Living Legend format, in the 2025 World Championship. The loudest of this discourse is, of course, the most critical, or heck, I'm going to say it, most negative. You, however, seem to have a more hopeful or at least measured take. Could you care to share?
I think I think it's really, I mean, just to start zoomed out on this, I think it's awesome how every Worlds has basically featured LSS taking a swing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like all the Pro Tours, except the first one, have been like basically the same. Like they've done like the round count has shifted, but it's like basically, same old, same old.
Right.
And then for Worlds every year, they've had like some kind of swing. Like 3 format Worlds to start with, and then Worlds 2 in Barcelona, we had the introduction of Living Legend as a format, albeit in the Battle Hardened. And then Worlds 3, we've had the Team Cup as like a concept been trialed out. And now we've got Living Legend in Worlds. And so I think, starting zoomed out, like taking swings and like creating unique tournaments, because although it's like one game Flesh and Blood, really every time there's a ban unrestricted or a new set, the game has changed. We're not like chess professionals who are playing actually the same game the whole time. And so like leaning into that a bit by having the tournaments like try different things, have different challenges that you gotta like adapt to and work towards. I love. So you'll never catch me being, super critical of any swing they take, because I just want them to keep taking swings. And then to like zoom in specifically to LL, like there's been a lot of negativity saying it's not that diverse, saying it's just a Runeblade format, saying it's Runeblade and Starvo format, saying it's like uninteractive or quick. But I just think there's like so much like depth in LL. So many like there's so many old heroes and old decks that you can play. And then there's so many like combinations of things that never existed in CC that you can explore. It's just like such a brewer's format. And I mean, there was a there's like a more blunt there's like a blunt take of this that's like you just need to spend more time on it. That is a bit uncharitable,
Of
because not
course.
everyone has all the time to spend exploring it. Like I am in a life position where I can spend a lot more time trying to like explore and find brews in LL. But I do think that just the like reduction to being like, it's just rune blades, nothing to be done. It's like have a bit of an explore. I think there's some really cool stuff going on. I mean, like downstairs in my house right now, um, I I won't betray their confidence, but there are some cool and interesting LL decks being discussed and played, and some of them are shit. They might a lot of them be shit, but there's a lot of joy even in exploring the shit ones, and some of them might be all right as well. So
And you're right. There are blunt takes both from a positive perspective and a negative perspective. And to be fair, your blunt approach, even though maybe it's misguided, we can throw it this way and that it does match the the forced trauma that's being exerted on Twitter. And the purpose of this discussion is not necessarily to say no, you're wrong, but I do think it is important for the community to hear some balance to the other side of it, because I also have been finding in testing that there's a lot more interesting. Sometimes I'm feeling like I'm having more interesting games than I am in CC, if I'm being completely honest. And that's really engaging for me. It has gotten me back into, like you said, the Brewers' philosophy. So it was a breath of fresh air for me to hear you, and of course a lot of other really amazing players have a more level-headed approach to Living Legend. Um, as a follow-up here, Jacob, yes, you have more time than most people to explore this format. I do wonder if there's an element of this where the Flesh and Blood community has grown so much, right? And so has the competitive scene. So we're getting to a point where players probably almost expect being able to go into a format with some sort of baseline knowledge. There should be a foundation because we have tools like Fab Blazing. We have so many more events than we used to. I shouldn't have to go into something completely blinded. In this case, we're talking about a ProQuest season that yielded, I think it was less than 10 events overall for LL, or if it was 10, it was barely north of it. There's just not as much data. Is there something that kind of has become so uncomfortable as the game has gotten bigger about having this lack of baseline knowledge?
So I think there's something interesting to draw an analogy to how like Magic does its Pro Tour, where Magic's Pro Tour is like 2 weeks after the set releases, and kind of the like point or the idea is that you go in essentially blind, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
everyone's brews and early unrefined takes. And Flesh and Blood, we don't do that typically. Our Pro Tours are like months after set release. There's been like bunch of coolings, bunch of battle hardens. It's like always pretty much known what's going on. And this time with LL, especially with the shakeups that have happened later, which even LSS have framed as unfortunate, but I think are actually interesting
Mm.
to create an environment where like there is more of this magic feeling, low prep time, low information environment, and then there is still a baseline, I think. You know, um, you can like Feng won the Battle Harden in Sydney with a good Viserai list in my I mean I hope it was good because it's the one our team came up with. Uh like Viserai and Stavo are very known quantities.
Mm.
Everyone knows they're going to be played, everyone knows they're going to be good, and I think there's been enough tournaments that everyone can net deck a list that was good. I mean, again, from our team, Feng and Brody both top aided the Battle Hardened Houston, was it? Uh
Yes, I'm
Somewhere in
pretty
Texas.
darn sure. Yeah, no, it was Houston.
Yeah, yeah, they both played the battle on Houston on Sabo list. I mean, there are other teams you can take other people's lists,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but like, and if the bans hadn't happened, if Chain was still the third prong of this format, again, Brody won the battle hardened on Chain as well. So like, there are for these top decks, I think a wealth of information and lists, and you're walking in pretty eyes wide open, and then it's just like, but there's like a second side, there's like an underside of the format that is a bit more unknown, but that could be a bit more exciting, I think, if you're willing to open yourself up to it.
The other big one of the other big criticisms that have come LSS's way is the time constraint that we're under after submitting the final banned and restricted list, which, to be fair, was pushed up a week from when it was originally scheduled, and very importantly so. I think they made a good decision there, but some folks feel that even that was not enough time to adapt, namely because in a lot of people's minds, chain is now kind of obliterated from the format. Discard whatever you think in regards to the efficacy of that statement, but do you think that I would like to get your take on the banned and restricted announcement?
I think I mean, I'll never say it was handled perfectly. And I think it
Mm-hmm.
was unfortunate some of the expectations that were set around this because the originally scheduled B&R was so close that it always felt like a bit of like a bluff or a lie that they would never really do
Right.
anything other than the most emergency bans then. And if there was a ban so pressing that they needed to do it then, they would have just done it even without a scheduled B&R. So it was always a little strange of a choice to schedule the B&R then because it effectively communicated there was going to be no bans. And then you have people buying in, you have people with limited time like testing, even just like people just like kind of like emotionally or like, feeling committed to a deck.
Right.
And so I think the like expectation around this was handled poorly. And I'm sympathetic to people who feel like let down because of the expectation. But in terms of what has actually happened, having a format like, been like, this is now the format, you now have all the information, like 2 and a bit weeks out, is again, it's like other card games work like this. It's not actually a impossible or untenable position. If Fab had wanted to do this, it would have been better to communicate it from the start that this was going to happen. But in terms of what we've actually got, like looking forward with what we now can control, I think it's like not too bad. We're actually quite or even quite like interesting and fun. And then the badness just comes from this like mismanaged expectation.
And I do wonder how much coverage is going to play a role in remanaging the expectations, because I do feel in my heart of hearts that after everybody sees the best of the best play games out on camera and maybe experiences some of what you have found in testing and the rest of your team, that there are interesting angles and there are game states that aren't simply just 8 rune chants pop for a Scalata and a Sonata that end the game on the spot, that maybe opinions on LL could shift in the future. Do you anticipate something like that phenomenon happening at Worlds?
I hope so. I think it's unfortunately kind of unlikely because there's not a lot of
Mm-hmm.
LL events scheduled afterwards. So even if, or hopefully when people see LL being cool and good and interesting, it's like there's nothing to like drive people to like get the because with CC often what happens is the worlds or the Pro Tour happens and then people are like excitedly like, oh, like this deck that did well at Worlds, maybe I'll play it at the pulling Valencia or
Mm-hmm.
Seattle or Hong Kong that are coming up next. But because they pivoted to Silver, or not pivoted, but like are now doing Silver Age at the Battle Hardens, pivot would imply it's a change, and I'm not saying it is, but it's just like there's nothing. Like I say, for me, it's the expectation that's been mismanaged, but the format is good, and I'm just regard it that it's a bit unfortunate that LL seemingly going to be put on the back burner for a bit after this, which I think means the narrative won't get a chance to catch up.
An
But
interesting and
maybe,
level-headed take for sure. But no, continue.
but
What were you
maybe who
saying?
knows? People watch LL, think it's amazing, play it at your armory or something. Don't people also can control this. Like you don't need to like what I said doesn't need to happen. I just think it probably will.
Mm-hmm. Moving on now to Act Two, which I am entitling "The New Kid in Town Has Always Been Here." You're the new kid in town, even though I would say you've been a household name for about a year, ever since your top 8 in the calling in Osaka, if I'm not mistaken, on the Count Your Blessings Enigma. Or I'm sorry,
Uh,
was that Worlds?
that was at Leon. That was at
That was Leon.
Leon.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah,
So,
the like release that like release trio of coolings that
mhm,
happened before Worlds.
okay, so even though you've solidified your reputation in the first year of the Flesh and Blood World Tour, you've been putting up respectable results for some time. One of the most notable that I think people probably don't know about is that you were top 25 at the first ever World Championship in San Jose. What has it meant to you to finally hit your stride, though? Is there anything in particular you can point to that has made all the difference?
Uh, I mean, made the difference in terms of like finish, like getting the results, or made the difference like, or
The
is that, or what do you mean by that? Sorry.
that's where I'm going with that particular question. But so really, I need to separate this into two parts. The first part is you glimpsed that mountain at the Magic PQ in London that you went to. You finally summit it once you get your first calling victory, or at least maybe in your more competitive mind, you have reached 1,000 feet before the summit or something like that. What has that meant to you?
Well, it was like it meant so much. Or even to go back a little bit, the first time I top aided a cooling was at the cooling attached to the Pro Tour in Amsterdam.
Mm.
And I had between like my start to Flesh and Blood competitive couldn't have gone better in some ways. I like go to an RTN with a friend. I didn't even really know what an RTN was, but he was like, I'm going to an RTN, you should come with me. And I'm like, I play some Flesh and Blood, not even really knowing like what Nats is or when it is or like how I qualify. And I'm at the RTN and people are like, if you top four, you'll be able to go to Nats. And I'm like, that's cool. And it was a draft one for UPR, and I was first in Swiss, and then I lose in Top Cut, and I'm like, that's unfortunate. I've glimpsed it now. I didn't even know what an RTM was before this weekend, but now I need to qualify for Nats. And so the next weekend, I got the train to London and played a CC RTN where I punched my ticket, and then I go to Nats and I top eight and punch my tickets to Worlds. And like through top eighting Nats, I meet some amazing people, George Rogers in particular, who live in Oxford, where I was going to uni that like later that month. And so I like start like hanging out with him, playing Clash Royale with him, and he's like, you should use your PTI and go to Worlds. And so I like punched my ticket to Worlds. I have to text my parents, get them to post me my passport because I didn't bring it with me to uni because I hadn't even imagined that I'd be going to the
Of
US
course.
on a weekend. In my first time at uni, and I go and I like top 25 as you say. I'm 21st, I believe, and it's just like boom. I can see this like mountain, and I'm like going up it, and it's like all the things I'd like caught the glimpse at that Magic
Mm.
Pro Tour, and then I had a period of like 2 years where I lose six top eight win-ins in callings,
Mm.
and like don't never cash another tier four, and I'm just like always. I just feels like I'm like always just that like bit shy.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like going like a bit mad with it, where I'm like at first I'm like like amazing like uh calling Lil. It's like one of the first events I play. I very early in my career, might even it's like before Worlds even, and I come 10th, and I'm like, wow, like I go to this calling of like 900 people, I come 10th, and then like as
Mm.
it like goes on, and I keep coming like 9th, 10th, 11th. I'm like, what do I do? Like to lose this many win-ins, it's like a statistical abomination. I like, am I just not good enough? Will it never be my day?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do?
Yeah, I
And
think
it's like,
you're speaking to something so important because with a lot of the prolific players in these games, there is kind of a um, there's an incongruous positive stigma when it comes to you as a card game player. I think people see you in top eight matches and on feature match all the time, winning here and there, seeing your name at the top of calling lists, and they're just like, well, he's just good. He's just built different. And in a certain regard, I'm sure that's right. You have an enormous amount of natural talent going to your first RTN and top eighting, but also like any journey, there's a hump that you have to overcome, and so now I turn to the second part of my question. What do you think made the difference between those six losses of win-ins until you finally break in?
I think there was like there's like a mindset thing. I don't know if it's a shift, but there's this. I think this is actually funnily what I got from Brody in that conversation you mentioned earlier that actually happened
Mm.
at Pro Tour LA about the supercomputer, where some of my friends at uni who played card games a bit more casually, didn't really play Flesh and Blood, but they were like, if you keep being in the position to be in a winning in for top eight, you must be like basically as good as the people making top eight. And
Mm.
it's just like a numbers game. If you just keep playing, you know, you you can't lose 7 win-ins in a row. And I was like, to some extent, this is true. And to some extent, this is a nice sentiment. And, I appreciated them taking an interest. But I'm like, actually, I think a lot of these like win-ins, I can like look back and see mistakes I made in the
Yeah.
game or like things I didn't understand or like where it like stemmed from stuff I could have like, it's like, and this is like what the Brody supercomputer thing is that belief that like really, if I was the best, there would be no like, but variance still gets
Mm.
you to the extent that people assume. Like
Mm.
variance obviously exists, but this like kind of accountability mindset of not letting myself slip into being like, so unlucky. But like, almost like lying awake at sleep, like letting yourself be tortured by the fact that like if I'd remembered to choose the extra mode on Blood in the Hands at Warsaw, or if I'd like not giving Gabe his snaps or not gone for the Crown of Seeds thing against Gabe, I would have like top eighted at Amsterdam. And that if I'd like, like all these like holding in my heart all these mistakes I'd made and
Mm.
knowing that like it's not like a luck thing. It's like I just got to find a way to like tap into that extra like 5% performance. And like knowing that like these weren't like crazy unknowable spots. I just like got like fatigued or I got
Yeah.
like emotional, like just like something happened that to make me make these mistakes and I just need to stop making them. And so I still don't know exactly what it is, but there's like something about like familiarity, like getting like comfortable being on the top tables, like the people watching and all the buzz and all the pressure. And so there's like some getting used to that, and then there's some like I've been trying to focus now and like going forwards on being less jet lagged and getting better sleep before events that aren't in my home region.
Mm-hmm.
And that because I've played some callings where I'm just destroyed.
Yeah.
Like I've flown in the night before and I've like had no sleep, and that's not ideal. And I don't know, just trying to like tap into these extra like reserves of performance.
So it sounds a lot like what made the difference for you was more of a mental aspect to your game rather than diving into more reps, trying to understand matchups a little more cleanly. And that is definitely something that I am most fascinated about as somebody who engaged with the competitive scene in this game via the stream much sooner than I did actually going to the events and understanding how long these days are, how mentally fatiguing it can be, how hard it is to get food sometimes in the interim between matches. So I do want to delve into this concept a little bit more. I do wonder if there's an aspect of Jacob who has lost 6 win-ins to top 8. If there's a mental block, almost dare I say, feeling like it's not something you deserve as of yet, that kind of leaks into the way that you play the game. Do you find any truth in that?
Yeah, or like I mean, I think it might be telling to describe the like my calling Amsterdam. I'd failed to qualify for the Pro Tour that time, and it was the
Mm.
first tier four since I started playing properly. I didn't qualify for Lille, but like I wasn't even playing during PQ season. That I'd like not qualified for. And so I was like on such like an emotional downswing that like I almost achieved like a clarity. Where like for so long I'd
Mm.
been like, I qualify for all the tier fours, but I don't necessarily cash. And I like always top 16 in the callings, but I don't top eight. And it's like this like, like really, I know this is the like this is like a respectable stat line. And I just gotta like find that last reserve to like break through. And then I was like at the venue, and like all my friends are playing the Pro Tour, and I'm not, and I'm like, God, this is not respect. We need to tomorrow when we come back and it's my turn to play. I'm gonna I'm gonna make it happen. Like
Mm.
no more fucking about.
Yeah.
Like I actually in my heart know that like I'm good enough, and it's like it will be my day tomorrow feeling, and then I don't know, like it was almost like I had to like stop being happy with good enough
Mm.
and be like a bit unhappy and a bit like, no, actually, let's get the elbows out. We need to make this happen tomorrow.
Yeah, it's interesting. You keep talking about this push and pull between, I guess let's call it extreme ownership or extreme agency on one side where you're like, I have control over everything, and it's because of me that I am not reaching the goal that I want to. And then the other side of it, I don't know, at least holding in reserve, like, yes, this is a card game, there is variance at stake here, and maybe only holding that insofar as making it so that the losses don't haunt you nearly as much, and so that you can leave them behind in order to show up better in the future. It's a really difficult tightrope to walk, because if there's one thing I know about card games, is that folks aren't successful if they lean too hard into the variance side of the spectrum, where they throw their hands up at the end of every single game and say, well, they just had the blood rush and I didn't, or they drew 3 of a kind and I didn't, whatever it is. You do have to take some accountability for your losses and also your wins, but also there is that specter that haunts you when you think that every single thing is within your control. Do you think that calling in Leon, is there something that snapped you into focus and made you find the perfect balance between those two sides of the mental game?
I think I almost feel like there's like the like perfect competitor just has no concept of variance, and it's only but like you need to hold on to the fact of variance just to like be able to like live your life.
Yeah.
But like, so it's almost like a balance. It's like there's like various interesting quotes about madness and genius that I almost feel like, where it's like if you like were totally unaware of the concept of variance, like and you like were surrounded by people who like never told you that like there was variance in this game, or like however you like constructed some person and like trained them in a lab to not know about variance, and they just played card games believing it was like chess. Like they could be the greatest strat player ever, but they would be like utterly mad at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Because if I'm extrapolating this metaphor properly, then it's basically like the person across from you is choosing to draw the right cards at the right time. Ultimately, it's not variance. It's like I have control over when they draw the right cards and all that kind of stuff. If variance doesn't exist.
Yeah, or like more so it's just like the games you lose. If you didn't believe that was variance, you would just like never stop digging to try and like identify the mistake you'd made to lose. Which if you had that attitude, you would find way more mistakes you could correct. There are like the reason why people who just throw their hands up and say, "Oh, they drew the blood rush before me," like miss out on wins is because they don't manage to like identify but I could have used my scowling better on their blood rush turn. And so it's like the longer you don't let yourself accept its variance, the more mistakes you're going to find incorrect. But the games where there really were no mistakes, you're just going to like keep digging forever and like driving yourself mad trying to find the mistake that isn't there. And so you have to find the balance that'll let you put it down and say, maybe there was nothing, but miss as few mistakes as possible. But I don't know. I mean, Leon was actually a fun experience because I was playing this like CYB Enigma deck I'd brewed so with my friends, but I was like, I just had this belief that I'd completely broken the meta. My deck was ridiculous, and it would be like a shame. Like it would be like I almost had this view that it'd be crazy not to top 8 because I was like, I'm gonna have the best deck in the room by far. Who would I even lose to? My deck's ridiculous. And then I lost to Pablo twice because he was also playing Enigma and his deck was better in the mirror. So, sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes Pablo has a better deck than you. But yeah, it was like Amsterdam more so where I was like playing a new deck and I was like, it's just a stock new deck. But I've just decided that there's no more mistakes because I have this like framework where when I think about tournaments, I'm like, there'll be half the games where you have better luck than your opponent. And you should win, and you got to be a good player and convert those. You can't punt those away. But really, to top it, you have to go like 10-2 at like a 12-round cooling usually, and it's like we have to win more than half the games that we shouldn't win by being better than our opponent. And so any like illusions or worries about this game being too variance heavy, or like people who are like, it's all variance. It's like, what are you doing? How do you ever believe you're going to go 10-2 if you think there's 6 out of 12 games that variants are going to take from you? You have to believe that like 90% of the games like come down to player skill, before even like Michael Hamilton has a chance to top eight the cooling.
And I think that's the thing that just doesn't quite connect with people until they've been to one of these big events. Like how I guess not really perfect, but how infallible you have to be just to make it out of the Swiss rounds. It's a daunting task.
Yeah.
So moving on, Jacob, you're a part of Team Super Armory, which is a essentially rebrand of Team Armory that was originally founded and headed up by Simon Nielsen. And you are now under the banner of MinMax Games, and Simon Nielsen has stepped away from the roster. Can you help us understand the change for the rebrand? Does it feel like a different team?
So no, it still feels very continuous. And Simon, it's like no harsh feelings or any like drama. He's just his Magic Worlds is uh 1 week after or 1 week before, or it's not the same week, but it's like too close to be comfortable for him.
Mm.
So he just had to. I mean, he could have prioritized Fab, and we're all a little bit, just a tiny bit disappointed he didn't. But really, we're happy he qualified for Magic Worlds, and he's going to go crush it there. But the team has always been like had a little bit of flow in and flow out on members, because we're more structured to be like for each tier four. We're trying to like come together with the people who like we like and want to be on the team and want to work together and can go. Because
Mm.
there's also an element of that. Sometimes you have people who we'd love to work with, but just like, can't make it to the tier four. And then because we're not like an, usual testing team, they're like, if you're not going to the tier four, that's the main thing. We're like, it's almost like Avengers Assemble
Right.
for the big threat, for the tier four.
And
And then we have like a slightly different roster each time based on who's around.
and it makes sense based on all of the logistical factors that you mentioned before. Sometimes it's better to have a group of carnies every now. You're saying Avengers, I'm saying carnies. We're on different
Yeah.
levels of metaphor, but we're saying the same thing. One of the members that is not testing with Team Super Armory this year, but has in the past, is Yuki Lee Bender. And when I had her on the podcast, she mentioned that one of the greatest things about that first season with Team Armory for PT London was about how incredible Simon was about disseminating information and team structure. I'm wondering if you can speak to what she said, and maybe let us know if you had something that was even more influential for you, or more of like an aha, like this is the place where I need to be.
Simon's got like this like incredible, playing Magic so long, like the like flesh and he would often joke that he's like the worst flesh and blood player on the team by far, but that but what always went unsaid a bit, or he wouldn't say at least, obviously, was that he like was like so many decades ahead of us in like this like experience, or decade, I guess it's not that old, but decade ahead of us in this experience of being like in the process.
Right.
And so like at that first house, I just remember on the first day, he's like team meeting and I'm coming in and I'm like ready to talk about whether we should be playing new or we should be playing Aurora, whatever. And he's like, first of all, how's the sleeping arrangements for everyone?
Mm.
Like I noticed you look a bit tired today. Like it's no harsh feelings. Like no one should feel bad, but if you're like sleeping with someone who's snoring and you're a light sleeper, like we should sort it out. And like just having that like they're just like all the week there'd just be things like this that he would be thinking about that like wouldn't have even crossed my mind, of like getting the most performance from everyone. And then like more card game related, sometimes he'd be like, well, what we typically do, and like when we're trying to test, like one concept he was saying is from his Magic testing is like declare victory. Like sometimes you're sat there and your opponent's thinking, but you just know you have it, you just have it like 7 ways to Sunday, and you just like wasting time, and you can like expedite the process. Or like when we're Talishar testing like Kano combos, or even in person testing Kano combos, it's like don't waste a whole nother like 20 minutes getting to the go turn. If you think there was a different decision on the go turn, just like go back and try it the other way.
Mm. So
And so
so
like all these like
so some
process
like
things.
game testing shortcuts here and there, obviously zooming out on the human issues That's probably
Yeah,
something that he and the super fab computer would disagree on here and there.
yeah. I mean, we would like walk to the park every day, or not every day, but like a lot of days. At one point, we started doing that to leave the house because otherwise we'd just be inside testing all day. He had like he suggested we had like a like soft how would you say, like curfew on playing games because otherwise we would just keep playing and then keep staying up all night because we're having too much
Yeah.
fun. Like, yeah, he just was like really good on this like human, like I think of it as the human side of like managing everyone.
Yeah, and I wonder the game curfew is fascinating to me because I do think it is so important to take. I mean, anybody that's successful at this game would tell you that it's important to take breaks here and there. But in a team atmosphere as well, did you feel like it helped you connect on a deeper level with your teammates and maybe have experiences with them that you wouldn't have had if you were just locked into Fab all day?
Uh, I think I don't know. I mean, the curfew was always late enough that it's not like we were going out and doing anything
Sure.
afterwards. But there's I mean, I think we've been really lucky that we've had this like great group of people that have always had like a really good like chemistry or like connection. And like when I first joined, I kind of knew no one on the team. Like I'd just met Brody and he'd invited me. So I didn't really know him. But I also didn't know anyone else. Like I didn't know anyone like he was also the person I knew the most.
Mm.
And after he'd invited me before we started the team, I went and played like another cooling where he and Hamilton and Feng were, and like I got to see them a bit first and like chat to them that weekend. But I was like going in blind. And I was a bit like, ooh, like this could be like quite awkward,
Mm.
even if everyone here is good at Flesh and Blood and we work well together in the game, you know, it's like all these strangers in a house for a week could be awkward. But it was just like everyone was so like nice or connected, or like I say, it's like hard to nail it down, but it just felt like it clicked in quite naturally, which was nice.
Was at first you mentioned a little bit of discomfort just because of apprehensions about people getting along because you had only just barely met Brody and you didn't know anybody else personally on the team. Did you suffer at all from an inferiority complex or a fear of living up to expectations, or was that not on your radar?
Uh, not well. I was like, well, actually, I had quite a funny experience when because at first the team was also a bit under wraps before London,
Right.
and so when I'd gone to calling Kuala Lumpur and stayed with Brody and Michael, and when I came home, Jason Rolfe, one of the UK guys, asked, he's like, Jacob, you stayed with these guys all weekend. Like, did you hear anything about the team? Do you know who's on it? And I was like, I don't really know what you're talking about. And he was like, no, Jacob, like don't lie to me. I can read you. I know you know what I'm talking about. And eventually I looked at him and was like, all right, Jason, if you must know. Don't tell anyone else. But actually, I'm on the team. And Jason went, no, no shot. Do you know who I know who's on the team? We got Pablo Pintor, we got Arthur Treyer, Pro Tour champions, multiple time pooling champions, Pro Tour top eights. Get out of here. And I was like, Jason, I want the cooling. He's like, do you think that counts? There aren't even 200 people at that cooling.
I absolutely love Jason Rolfe so much. I quick story time. I connected with him for the first time at the calling in Las Vegas at US Nationals most recently. Completely stomped him in the Gravy Bones limited mirror.
Oh,
By the way, boom. But also,
basically, you won that cooling then.
dude, 100%. That's what I've been trying to tell people. But Jason is one of the greatest human beings in the game of Flesh and Blood. I'm so stoked that he is doing well, and also it's hilarious that he laughed in
Oh,
your face being a part of Team Armory.
100%. 100%. I mean, don't want anyone to be under any illusions that this was like a hateful or a mean interaction. This was like it was just so funny where he was like, lie to me. I know you know something, and I was like, all right, if you must know. And he was like, well, yeah, that doesn't make sense
I'm
either.
not
And I was
buying
like,
it.
I don't know what to tell you then. There's something I can tell you then. I've lied to you. I've told you the truth. I don't know. I don't have a third option.
So you didn't have to have an imposter syndrome because Jason Rolfe was that for you.
Yeah. But I mean, I did know. I mean, like as much as he was wrong, he was right. I was like the least among the least accomplished of the
Mm,
team, but I just always, I just like saw it where I was like, well, here now, whether rightly or wrongly,
mm.
they've made the mistake of adding me, so now we're gonna make do, and I'm gonna like I don't know, get down to it. And also, I think it helped that between when Brody invited me onto the team and when we like had the team house and actually got onto it, I had actually had quite a good run. I'd come like third at Memphis. I'd come second at Kobe. I went 2-3 drop at Sao Paulo. So it was like a good run of callings.
Hmm.
All three of them equally good, I would say.
And make do you certainly have. It bears mentioning, Jacob. You've become a contender for the Player of the Year, which absolutely nobody would have expected based on the way that Brody started off the year. Um, and you have one of the better records on Team Armory. So congratulations to you for whatever apprehensions you had going into the team and the accomplishments that you've had on the way.
For sure.
Furthermore, speaking of teams, Team Armory is not the first that you've worked with. You cited Team Toxic as being one of the most influential reasons you were able to take down Calling Florence when you did. I wonder if some of the discomfort in joining Team Armory, or I guess in certain respects going out on a limb in that regard, was because you are leaving behind a comfort zone, a team that you're already good at working with and has led to good results. Can you talk about that aspect of joining Team Armory?
Yeah. I mean, when I got invited, I was like, oh, I've already got my crew. It's got all my friends in it,
Yeah.
or like my Brits back home. And so when I got invited, I messaged George, who uh, was, I mean, it's not like structured enough to have like I don't know. It's not like we got roles on Toxic being like who's the boss, but he is the boss. And also like close personal friend. And I was like, I've got invited to this thing. Like, it sounds like it's got like a really great crew on it. So, like, could be a really good opportunity, but I don't want to like leave you guys, whatever. Like, what should I do? And he was like, you should definitely go for it.
Yeah.
But still talk to me. Still play some test games with me. It'll like don't like lose touch to do this. And over time, especially, I feel like on our Team Super Armory, we've gotten better at being like secrets, kind of fake in Flesh and Blood. Everyone like it feels like the real knowledge gaps come from like how to sideboard and like detailed matchup plans. And that also this like rising tide floats all boats idea.
Right.
And so while this wasn't like fully there in the first edition, over time, it feels like we've gotten to a good state where, because, we've everyone's got their, like a lot of teams are really just, people's locals and their friends. And so a lot of the people on Team Super Armory have this where they have like, their crew back home and just being like, don't overthink it. You can still be in your crew back home, still be talking to them, still be playing with them. Like it's like keeping that connection. And so I'm still on the like Team Toxic Discord server. I still like test with them and talk with them. And so it's like it feels like I ended up in the best of both worlds where I didn't have to choose.
Ultimately, we're all just playing flesh and blood people with flesh and blood with the people that we love.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways the team the fact it's all called teams is like misleading or,
Yeah.
misses the point. I
It,
mean, no
it
one's getting signed to Real Madrid.
yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Jacob, because looking from the outside in, when you haven't been ascribed to a team yet, it does feel like it is one of those glass ceilings that you can't penetrate, and you internalize. I don't know, maybe this is just the way I felt, but I would internalize like, well, I could be good enough if I'm able to break into this cabal, right? When in reality,
Yeah.
a lot of it comes from a different place.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, there's been some running gags among some of my friends about the pros, how people sometimes must, and I mean, understandably, because we, talk about teams and talk about, like secret tech and everything else. So like, I remember I read a tweet from someone after the cooling last year in Chicago where they were like, I was the highest ranked person not on the team, like just like something, which is, I mean, fair play to them as well. No,
Yeah.
no hate, but I was like, it's like from the outside, it's sometimes when I'm like in the Team Toxic or Team Super Armory Discord, and we're just like in a voice call, like laughing our heads off, like fucking about, we've like barely, lost focus of the testing even to the extent we were like doing that even. I'm like, God, what these people who like are looking in from the outside, thinking about the pros and the teams. What if only they could understand just how like friendly and low
Yeah.
low stakes or not low stakes, but like
Low
less
intensity,
serious it
maybe.
really
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So, Jacob, I mentioned it before, but you're at the front of the pack for the first ever Flesh and Blood Player of the Year race. You trail the leader only by 11 World Tour points, and that leader happens to be your friend and colleague, Brody Spurlock. I'm sure you would be ecstatic for Brody if he wins it,
yeah.
but what would it mean to you to clench the crown for yourself?
Oh, it would be. I mean, it would be like so surreal because, like you say, for so long, I felt like. I mean, I actually, it's funny because I won the first calling in the system. So I took a photo when I was number one and then filed it away and was like, this never happen again. But it's nice that I led it once and was like, maybe I'll just be happy to win Europe Player of the Year. And then as it progressed, I was looking like more and more locked to do that. And now it's progressed and I'm looking like actually in the mix. And so it still feels a bit surreal. And because Brody's my teammate and friend, I always every event I'm like, I always have this thought to myself where I'm like, even if I won this tournament, Brody would still come second, so I'd only gain 2 points on him. And so he's just still locked. He's still locked. There's nothing, and to some extent, I feel like I like struggle to get too. Even now, it still doesn't feel too hopeful because I'm like I could never, even if I did everything right,
Mm,
I still can't make sure I win because he's still ahead. And so even if I won, if he came second, it would still be his. But it would, I mean, it would be amazing and it would be surreal. And it also, I would love it as a testament to my region, to the UK and to Europe, to have us be atop that, because I mean, I I feel like I'm like almost like less competitive personally than you might think,
yeah.
because I'm a bit like I just like love the strategy and I love the analytics and the winning would just come from applying that well. But then for my region, I'm like, no, Europe is the best region. All these people thinking America's the best region, thinking Asia's the best region. You don't understand. You don't understand how good my people are.
I'm sure Jason Rolfe is pumping his fist there hearing you say that.
Yeah.
Taking back everything he said about you being on Team Armory. I want to end this section with something that I feel like I've noticed from you. I mean, at this point, I have casted a number of your biggest stream matchups in the calling circuit, and I'm thankful for having done so. But it does give me kind of a weird parasocial relationship with you. So in the interest of making that less parasocial and maybe a little more social, uh, I want to share something that I think I've noticed about you, which is that you never seem, even when the stakes are the highest, you never seem divorced from the fun of the game. You always seem to be able to access it. You're always having fun with your opponent, despite it being a winning in, losing out situation. Is that something that has always been inherent in the way you approach card games, or is maybe that another one of those aspects that brought you to the next level from Jacob, that is losing all of his win and ins to that first break in?
Yeah. I I think I've always been quite chatty. And then like it translated to card games because I was just like quite bubbly. It's almost like I don't really get anxious, but to the extent I do, I feel like I just end up being like more like trying to take up more like space, be more loud. And then when I had some people, when I play them and they'd be like, oh, actually like I'm trying to focus. And I always try and be respectful of that when people ask. But it felt like I had a period where I was trying to do what you're meant to do. And so I'm
Mm,
like, people would say to me, they're like, you seem really chatty, but it seems like you should be focused on the game. And I'd be like, like I'll try and do that. And there's still like a balance and I'm still trying to get it right. But it almost felt like once I'd been on those top tables long enough and I got a bit more comfortable with it, I was like, this really is my most natural state.
yeah.
And so for me, I'm gonna try and be like kind of true to myself or be in my most natural state, and that will be the most conductive. And when I have like a big decision or something I got to focus on, I'll like shut down for that. Or if my opponent, asks me, I'll try and be respectful. But just like finding that like natural happy place almost.
Yeah. I mean, is there a truism that we can point to where you play your best when you're enjoying yourself, when you're having fun?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a truism. I mean, there's like something also interesting here about how like, some like truism as well about how we only ever know life from our own perspective.
Mm.
And so it's like hard to truly compare like experience to some extent. The whole like is my green, your green thing. Um, but and it's because it's like it's not. I'm not chatting with people just because it's like the most enjoyable. But there's like something about like something between like unconscious and flow state of like just the way you are that requires the least thought that that is real like that is the like true like center of truth to me about that because I'm like I might actually be having the most enjoyment like you know doing something else even crazier and less focused.
Mm.
But this like kind of chatty, kind of focused, kind of watching the game next to me if there's something interesting going on. I'm a watch the game next to me gamer. Um, my opponent's thinking, but it's like staying too rigidly locked in almost like ends up like totally zonking me out.
Yeah.
Whereas there's like some nice flow state for me in the middle that I now just go for being in.
So when it all comes down to it, once again, even in card games, we're just looking to find ourselves and be ourselves in a comfortable way.
Yeah.
What a great way to end that section, Jacob. Let's move on to our third and final act. This is a section that we always tailor especially to our illustrious guest. And in this case, Jacob, it is going to be called The Best Convention Center in the World. Jacob, you are one of the most well traveled, I should say, individuals in the game of Flesh and Blood. You go far and wide to play this game. It is an inevitability, though, that when you go around the world playing a card game, you spend an overabundance of your time in convention centers, convention halls. And Jacob, I think you need to be the one to tell us which reigns supreme in a series of categories. We haven't briefed you on this
Yeah.
whatsoever, so this is going to be completely off the
No.
cup. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, number one, best bathrooms.
Ooh. Uh, I this is probably gonna be some recency bias in this,
Okay.
but the cooling Shizuoka had I never had to wait. There were lots of bathrooms, and they were all fine, but I never had to wait, and that's big.
It makes sense that Japan is going to win bathrooms just based on
Yeah,
what I know about frequenting that country. Number two, best on site food.
that's tricky. Sometimes there isn't even on-site food, so like I
Yeah.
now am like, if there's even on-site food, it's a big win. Um, the best on-site food, uh, probably probably Prague. Prague had some quite nice. It was like just outside. They had some quite good bits. Europe often has this model where there's like a kind of like food truck or
Yeah.
stand outside the venue that is like a good balance. Whereas other venues, like it's often like the actual venue's food, which makes it a bit overpriced and
Mm-hmm.
bad. So yeah,
Plus, Europe does
I'd
pastries better
probably say
than
Prague,
anyone else in the world, and that's a big plus in my eyes.
indeed.
Okay, number three, best ambiance, best vibe. I guess we could call it.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh. Uh, Five is difficult because it also depends on the type of event like you're at. Like often like the tier fours have a slightly different vibe
Mm.
than the later events. But um to pick a specific moment actually, I think the vibe or the best ambience for me was at Cooling Amsterdam on the Sunday when um cheer roared through the room. And you looked
Mm.
over and you're like, the cooling's finished and the battle hardened is still going. And it's Matt Folks and Tariq Patel in their best of five D6.
Incredible. Um, Okay, moving on. Best chairs, most comfy chairs, I guess was really what I'm trying to come down to.
Ooh, shit. Oh, I feel like I'm a bad person to ask because, like we discussed in the travel segment, I'm just so insensitive to
You
creature
just
comforts.
take the
I
punishment, don't
feel
you?
I just take the punishment. I'm like, I've got the like. What did you say? I have the spine of a young man.
Yeah, exactly. Still got that gummy spine. Got all your stem cells still doing
Still
work
got
in
that
there.
gummy spine. So I honestly, I've not even don't even have really a conception of this one.
Okay,
I
this is
like,
definitely one
oh,
that has become more
nothing I can
important to me
say.
as I get older. Do you have maybe
Yeah.
on the flip side a situation where you've been particularly uncomfortable and you've noticed like this cannot be the arrangement for this tournament?
This is this is what I mean. Like I haven't even had that thought. So I'm like, I don't even know what it. I
It's
I've
understandable.
genuinely,
It's just not fair,
yeah.
is
I,
all.
no, there's no justice to this.
Okay, our fifth and final category here, Jacob. You have given us a little bit of snippet of it already, so I'm going to have to ask you to choose a different one. Best moment for you or just in general.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be easy to say Florence where I won. That
Mm-hmm.
was very sweet. But I mean, that's like almost a separate category and would be a cop out. So I will instead give my best cooling moment as at cooling Memphis when on the first day on the Thursday when walking into the venue, I look at a sign and I say, "Oh, it's a ballroom." And I was working with Michael, Bang, and Brody, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, I think the American Menu is something like this." And I said, "Ah, it's a ballroom. That means that whoever wins, because there's two callings, the two winners, they have to do a dance together." And um, so Brody and Michael were both unsure about it. They're like, "I don't know." I was like, "It's just if they're the winners. It's just." And so I like just through persistence got Bang and Brody to agree that if the three of us, if we won both callings, that the two winners would do a dance together in the ballroom. And so then later Hamilton arrives, and flash forward to the end of this weekend, and Brody's won the CC calling on
Yeah,
Syndra, and Hamilton's won the limited calling on Syndra. And so just for us, they in the venue while waiting for waiting to be interviewed or waiting for the battle hardened to finish to do winners interviews, I think it was, or something. They did a they did a little dance.
that's glorious. There has to
Brody
be
and Michael
video of
did.
this, right? Please tell me there is, Jacob.
Uh, I think there might be, but I don't have it. I just was soaking up the moment. He waltzed and they did some other dance moves. They were saying, "How many blocks? None. How many problems? None." As their Syndra mantra for the weekend of no blocks, no problems.
That's a really beautiful scene. Were they good dancers?
Uh they were enthusiastic.
Jacob, thank you so
And
much for that.
I was watching a devilish smile that I'd forced this into fruition.
Any thoughts on cutting in?
No, I was just like, I've got him. I was the puppet master in that moment. I was like, I planted the seed on Thursday. I targeted Feng first. He was weak-willed enough to agree that he would dance if he won. Then I looked at Brody and said, "You're really gonna be the only one not willing to dance if you win the calling?" Hamilton wasn't even there. He didn't even know that he'd agreed to it.
Your value as an asset on a team is making it laying itself even more bare. Here, Jacob. That's a fun moment. Well, that's my episode with Jacob Clements, ladies and gentlemen. If I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. You're a pleasure to talk to, Jacob. I really appreciate you being
Uh,
here and being a positive face for the competitive flesh and blood scene.
Thanks. It was a pleasure to talk to you too.
If you'd like to see more from Arcane Games and Events, well, we have no events on the horizon. Our season has come to a close, but we'll be back for Season 4 starting in January, and we are looking for a new region to expand to. So if you would like us to come to your backyard, go ahead and email us at info@arcanegamesandevents.com. We'll be making our choice at the beginning of December, and we may just pick your city. Jacob, if the good people in Flesh and Blood online land want more from you, where can they find you?
I'm mostly just on X at the moment. Handle Chopio with a zero instead of one of the O's. It's not very SEO'd, but that was my Club Penguin username when I was 5. So gotta lock it in.
Without a doubt. Club Penguin usernames are basically written in stone. I don't really know why do you think we're all so ascribed to our original usernames? I like mine is Holy Cow because I had a prop pally that was the first character I made on WoW. Do you have any intel on this?
We're as gamers, we're all children at heart. It all
Mm.
harkens back
We're
to
always
that time
chasing
in
that
our
inner
lives.
child, huh?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that bonus tidbit there, Jacob. That's been our episode. Thank you for watching or listening to Cardboard and Beyond. We'll see you next time.